And good evening, race fans. Welcome here as we are at Auto Club Speedway getting ready for knockout qualifying for this year's season finale. At the end of this race weekend, we'll be crowning a champion here in the Hersheys Cup Series. I was about to say a new champion, but that would actually be incorrect because the driver who won the championship last year, Anthony McCrury, is in the Final Four this year, with a chance of becoming a two-time Hersheys Cup Series champion in only 2 seasons of the series. We'll get to see 2 drivers of the Final Four here in this first heat of the first round of qualifying, and then we'll see the other 2 in the second heat. In this heat, you'll see Anthony McCrury as well as Benjamin Miles, Chris Dodd, and 4-time winner. That's right, 4 wins this season for Charles Sanford, including last week at Talladega, which indeed he swept this year. He won both the races of this season at Talladega. You'll see both him and Dodd in the second heat. We'll have to see if any of those 4 make it into the final round of qualifying. As we're currently looking at Shaun Gallighan in the 48, former winner this season, back at Armory Digital Super Speedway. And you can see him running the high line there off the corner, trying to get as much speed as possible, and he'll cross the line, putting the first lap time down as a 38.374. Right now, that is the fastest lap on the racetrack. John Gilbert running a 38.6. And there is one of your Final Four drivers, Anthony McCrury, in the Schnee Audi A5. Out of Kyotech Racing, passing right now Shaun Gallighan. Those 2 will be teammates next season at Seth Cole Baker Motorsports. And let's see what McCrury gets. Well, that's actually his first time lap is coming up here. He just is on the clock. A couple of drivers hitting the 37s, Pat Tellier and Carson Scott. Cody Llamas jumping up to 3rd, Trent Dunham up to 4th. They ran around 38 flats for their lap times. Anthony McCrury right now with a little bit of drafting help from Zachary Stoltz. And Auto Club very, very spacious, very fast, and it is draft reliant. As you see right there, Zachary Stoltz sliding up and getting into the wall off the corner, and so did McCrury. Scrubbing the wall a little bit there, maybe carrying a little too much speed. They're running a different chassis this year than they ran last year. As we'll jump to Benjamin Miles, who is up to the 8th position right now. There's the Napa Chevrolet. So right now he's in a good position to move on to the next round, but they're running a different chassis here this season than they ran in last season's finale. Last season's finale they ran chassis 5, which is basically no restrictor plates. This season, oh, look out! Miles almost turning Ryan Madden. Madden saved it though, that was a little close. But going back to what I was saying, they're running chassis type 2 here in this season finale, which is the Speedway chassis. And so apparently it must be a little bit tighter than chassis 5 would be, and maybe that's why drivers are going a little too hard out of the corner and getting that wall off of 4. We saw Zachary Stoltz get the wall into 3, so this is going to give them a good idea of what to expect in the race. And there's some contact again as Ryan Madden gets up into the wall and Benjamin Miles gets into him, and now the both of them are coming to pit road. They're probably going to have to repair some of that damage. Miles fell outside of the top 12, by the way, to the 15th position. McCrury is currently situated in 19th. So right now it doesn't look like either of the drivers for the Final Four in this one will be moving on to the next round of qualifying. There's the fastest car on track, Keith Batson in the 73. 37.756 the lap time he laid down. It looks like he will more than likely be moving on to the next round. It sees, oh, actually, I'm sorry, it was a 36.876 his fastest lap, I should say. It looks like himself, Matthew Daleo, his teammate Cat Tellier, along with Carson Scott, Brandon Gonzales, Cody Llamas, Elijah Gordon, Jake Baskinger, and Ryan Madden all look like they're good to move on to the next round as we had a spin up here. I don't know rightly who it was. Somebody spun though. Doesn't look like they hit anybody, but I don't know This could really be a very interesting finale with the way that these drivers seem to have very ill-handling race cars. And the session will be coming to a close here. There's Dillon Young. He's just barely in the 11th position behind Joshua Ciculli. And right now, O'Neal Baldwin holds the final transfer spot into the next round of qualifying. 30 seconds left for cooldown. That will do it. I believe those are going to be the drivers that will make the race from O'Neal Baldwin on up. Anthony McCrury gave it a last-ditch effort there. Ran a 38.120, but not good enough to get into the top 12. So Baldwin, Dillon Young, Ciculli, Madden, Baskinger, Elijah Gordon, Cody Llamas, Brandon Gonzales, Carson Scott, then Cat Tellier, Matthew Daleo, and Keith Batson is the fastest here in this session, and we'll move on to the next round of qualifying. So the two drivers, Benjamin Miles, Anthony McCrury, who came in as two of the final four drivers to battle for the championship, they were going to be starting somewhere around mid-pack. McCrury was 14th fastest, Benjamin Miles 18th fastest. As far as go-or-go-homers are concerned, 1, 2, 3, 4 go-or-go-homers making it into the next round of qualifying from this heat. So if we have 3 or more go-or-go-homers make it into the top 12 in our second heat, then the drivers that would fail to make the race at this point would include Austin Mongold, Zachary Stoltz, Seth Cole, James Qualls, Garrett Sidner, John Gilbert. We have to go further down before we find Stephanie Gardner and Aaron Henderson. So let's get ready now for our second heat of our first round of qualifying. Let's see if the other half of the final four, last week's winner Charles Sanford and Chris Dodd, if either one of them can make it into round 2 of qualifying. Alright, so as we get ready here for our second heat of the first round of qualifying, as mentioned, we will be seeing the other half of our final 4 championship competitors here for this week's season finale at Auto Club, Charles Sanford and Chris Dodd. But the question is, who's going to be the first one off pit road to lay down the first lap time in this session? And it looks like we got a car coming up. Looks like that's rookie Dougie Shears in the 21. And indeed it is. Just saw Charles Sanford enter out onto the pit road grid. I think he's in pit stall number 2 here for this session. A couple more drivers coming off the pit lane. That's Emmanuel Hartnett, James McLeod, and it's like Holden Gluba in the 55 as well. So we'll jump to the first car that came off of pit road, Dougie Shears, and watch him as he makes his way around this racetrack. There's Grayson Acevedo coming off pit road there, as well as Pichu London. Dougie Shears, running his rookie season with Fitzwater Australia Racing, will be moving over next season to still the 21, but it'll be a Chevrolet fielded by Michael Norman Motorsports. Kind of shades of the Snickers Cup series. Marie Monobe, our Michigan race winner, just now merging onto the racetrack, and Dougie Shears is on the clock, so let's see what his first official lap time will be. He might get a little bit of draft off that car just up ahead. I think that's John Arndt in the 24. And off the corner, doesn't hit the wall. Dougie Shears' first lap time of the second heat of the first round is a 38.564. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe Gallighan's was a 38.3, so not quite as fast as Gallighan's first lap in the first heat, as Emmanuel Hartnett now jumps to the top of the leaderboard with a 38.2. That's a little faster than what Gallighan's first lap was. So Hartnett's got at least the best first lap car, and I believe from Holden Gluba and Grayson Acevedo that you see jumping to the top of the leaderboard there. Pichu London, that's some draft that they got right there. That's a couple of draft laps. So let's see if either one of our two championship competitors in this heat, if they've made their way onto the racetrack yet, and indeed that is the case for Charles Sanford there. And just 2 cars behind him there is Chris Dodd. So there's your 2 championship competitors right there, and oh, this could get tight off of 4. Joe Rockingham trying to get that inside of Charles Sanford, and somebody just spun it there on the front straightaway. Looks like it was Kyle Keefe. Yeah, he's got some right side damage. Does our Pocono race winner, so Some contact apparently made between himself and another car, and he spun it on the front straightaway. Chris Dodd right now up to the 4th fastest position. And that's one thing that Chris Dodd has definitely been able to do over the other 3 drivers he's battling for this championship with, is he's definitely been able to be a lot better as far as the qualifying program. We got another wreck up here. That's Holden Gluba, Michael Norman, and Jason Haywood, and Chris Dodd got collected. Oh my goodness, Sanford is flipping. So is William Brock. Grayson Acevedo's involved, Cole Baker, and Joshua Michaels. Now, keep in mind, this is round 1. In round 1, if you go to a backup car, you do not have to start at the rear of the field. So that's the one blessing these drivers can count on, is the fact that with where Chris Dodd is 4th right now on the speeds, he would still move on to the next round of qualifying. Right now, Charles Sanford, though, was 21st fastest. And Chris Dodd is actually driven away from the incident. He's actually right there on the apron. Oh, and he just hit the pit wall. I'm not quite certain I wouldn't just kill the car and teleport to pit road, but he's trying to bring it back around from the racetrack onto the pit lane. Charles Sanford has teleported to move into the backup car quickly because there's not much time left, and I think he's actually not going to have enough time to be able to get into the top 12. As right now the fastest car on track is the 24 of John Arndt. Grayson Acevedo trying to make his way back around to pit road. There's Arndt. John Arndt, Cole Baker, Noah Cars, Chris Dodd, Pichu London. That'd be your top 5 right now. Then Acevedo, Olson, Gardner, Monobe, Rocco Twyman. Then it's Tim Walch and Levi McIntire right now holds the final transfer spot. And I believe just clinched it because I think the session just came to a close. Haven't seen a whole lot of qualifying speed out of John Arndt for the past number of weeks. Nice to see that 24 car find some speed. I believe his teammate Carson Scott made it in the first heat as well, so AS Racing looking good here at Auto Club anyway. Zeros on the clock, session should be over. Now it is, actually. And there was no change in the top 12. So we saw Cole Baker and Chris Dodd and Grayson Acevedo get caught up in that wreck, but fortunately for them, this was the first round of qualifying, so they will move on to the next round, backup cars and all. We have wrecks and drivers, having issues in the second round or third round of qualifying, then they would go to backup cars and start at the rear of the field. Zeros on the clock, session's complete. And the 12 drivers that will move on from the second heat will include Arndt, Cole Baker, Noah Cars, Chris Dodd, Pichu London, Grayson Acevedo, Daniel Olson, Jonny Gardner, Marie Monobe, Rocco Twyman, Tim Walsh, and Levi McIntosh. Charles Sanford was 23rd fastest on the charts, which means that at this point, only one driver's got a shot at getting a good starting position. That would be Chris Dodd in the 08. He'll be the only one of the final 4 to move on to the second round of qualifying. As far as go or go homers are concerned, I'm counting right now and I'm coming up with roughly 6 drivers. Yes, indeed, that's the case. 6 go or go home drivers moving on to the next round, and we had 4 in the first heat, which means that we are going to be having a total of 3 drivers going home regardless of moving on to this second round of qualifying. So drivers that have officially failed to make the race from this heat would include Holden Gluba, John Cittadino, Joe Rockingham, John Andrews, Davey Johnson, Dougie Shears, Marty Johnson, James McLeod, Tripan Tachiovernio, and Kyle Keith. So that's going to do it here for our second heat of the first round of qualifying. Don't go away. We're about to get coverage of our second round of qualifying. This could be the time if trouble breaks out. We can see some drivers going to backup cars here for this week's season finale at Auto Club. So we'll get ready here for our second round of qualifying, and as I was looking through the starting grid here for these drivers that moved on here into round 2, a couple of names jumped out at me that, a year ago were in an entirely different position as Brandon Gonzales leaves pit road. Will follow the 23. And 2 names that really jumped out at me were Joshua Ciculli and Rocco Twyman. Both those drivers last season were contenders for the championship. As a matter of fact, Joshua Ciculli finished out Season 1 of the Hersheys Cup Series as second in the point standings to Anthony McCrury. And you just think of what a difference a season makes. Josh Ciculli started out the year as a non-chartered ride. He did pick up 2 wins, but he didn't get himself into the top 30 in the points, so he wasn't able to be in the chase. And Rocco Twyman started the season out as a go-or-go-homer for what was Bulldog Motorsports, now Everham Motorsports, and has been just struggling to make races all season long. Just shows you the difference that a year makes here. There's no doubt about that. Brandon Gonzales, though, has been one of the few that has remained with his team since the start of the Hersheys Cup Series. And right now about to put down the first lap time here of round 2 of knockout qualifying. We've got 10 go-or-go-homers battling for 7 spots in the starting grid and a 38.088 for Brandon Gonzales. That's actually a pretty solid first lap for the Mitsubishi Lancer. There's Keith Batson, who was the fastest in Heat 1 of round 1. He's just now coming on the racetrack, so we'll have to see what the 73 lays down for a lap time in just a few moments. And only one of the final 4. Oh, that did not look good off that corner. That was Elijah Gordon getting the wall. Keith Basson just barely getting by. But only one of the final 4 that's battling for the championship made it here into this round of qualifying. That was the 08 of Chris Dodd. And if you told me that one driver was going to move on, that would probably be the driver I picked, because there's no doubt about it that the qualifying program on that 08 team, CJ Racing, has been exemplary ever since the chase began. It was a key factor, I believe, into him winning at Mid-Ohio, being able to start on the pole. Elijah Gordon moving to go to pit road. Let's see if Chris Dodd's on the racetrack yet. Yes, he is. Might be on his first time lap. He's not yet been scored. And at the stripe, let's see what he gets. Okay, he's not gotten scored yet. So maybe this is his first time lap. As Joshua Ciculli is top of the leaderboard, 36.832. Boy, that's a good lap time there for him. I'm not rightly certain anybody's going to be able to touch that, and I'm pretty certain that's going to lock him into the final round of qualifying as well. Pichu London, second with a 37.4. Then you got Ryan Madden, Daniel Olson, and Jonny Gardner. That is your top 5. We still have a couple drivers, Dodd, Carson Scott, Rocco Twyman, Tim Walch, and Tellier, that have to make a lap. And Chris Dodd, 12th fastest. That puts him right on the bubble spot to move into the final round of qualifying. Still waiting on Twyman, Scott, and Tellier to make a lap. Tellier was 3rd fastest in the first heat, and now Carson Scott has laid down a lap. And Cat Tellier has also laid down a lap, as has Rocco Twyman. So now all 24 cars have laid down a lap at this point. And right now, as far as the go-or-go-homers are concerned, the 3 drivers right now that would be in the elimination spots would be O'Neal Baldwin, Keith Batson, and Rocco Twyman. Oh, this doesn't look good up here. Well, okay, this was actually out of 2. I thought it might be out of 4. Tim Walsh moving by Cole Baker. Right now, Walsh 3rd fastest. Baker right now in the bubble position of 12th. Slides him way up the racetrack there, and he's going to get the wall out of 4. Tim Walsh, very strong race car, and just beat his own lap time. Top of the leaderboard for Tim Walsh, 36.710. How about that? His teammate Nathan Hudson went to victory lane just a few weeks ago. His first career win coming at Lime Rock, so Tim Walsh definitely showing that the Michael Norman Motorsports program has gotten better. Oh, this could be trouble. Yikes, just barely clears Joshua Ciculli, who got the wall there in the middle of 3 and 4. And let's see if his lap time is going to be counted. 0's on the clock. Did he just cross in time? No, he did not. They will not count that lap, but he still is the fastest on track. Ciculli will be second. And I believe the session has come to a close, and let's see who's going to be the 3 drivers who will not make the race. They would be Keith Batson, O'Neal Balvin, and Noah Cars. Rocco Twyman looks like he'll just barely make it in. And now 0's on the clock. Session is over, and that will do it for round 2.
Drivers,
and Chris Dodd just barely made it in. 11th place, so he will be in the final round of qualifying. Tim Walsh will join him along with Joshua Ciculli. Pichu London will make the race. He was 3rd fastest. Dillon Young 4th, just a couple weeks after his big win at, Homestead, Miami. I almost didn't remember where it was. Ryan Madden will move on to the next round as well. Jonny Gardner, Grayson Acevedo, Daniel Olson, Monobe R, Michigan race winner, Brandon Gonzales, Chris Dodd, and Cole Baker will get the final spot into the final round of qualifying. The drivers that officially make this race and get the 7 spots in the starting lineup will be Pichu London, Jonny Gardner, Daniel Olson, Monobe, Matthew Daleo, Elijah Gordon, and the final transfer spot going to Rocco Twyman. Drivers that officially will fail to make the race will be Noah Cars, O'Neal Balvin, and the fastest in Heat 1, Keith Batson, will not make this race. So, that's going to do it here for the second round of qualifying. It's time to find out now who's going to be starting on the pole for this week's race, this season's season finale at Auto Club. Don't go away. We'll find out in just a moment. Alright, so here we go. 12 drivers make it here into this final round of qualifying. And with it being 12 drivers, it's going to be very difficult for a driver to try and use the slipstream or the draft to be able to get themselves a fast enough lap time to start on the pole for this race. Now, if this was the chassis 5 that we ran last season, I would say, maybe track position isn't all that important. You can work your way through the field, but with what I've seen with drivers having such difficulty with the tightness into turn 3 and off of turn 4, it may be the best thing to start up close to the front of the field, because we could have ourselves some early cautions here in the season finale. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But right now, things definitely looking good for Chris Dodd, at least in a couple of respects. You think about the fact that he would be starting up near the front of the field, possibly ahead of any instance that could take place. Also keep in mind as well, you get a bonus point for leading the lap, so Chris Dodd would be the closest to the front of the field to be able to try and get up there and get that bonus point before any of his competitors do. So there's a couple of things right there that could work out into his favor. Dillon Young off pit road behind Ryan Madden in the 8. I think the fastest lap we saw laid down for a first lap was the lap time that we saw laid down in the second round of qualifying by Brandon Gonzales. We'll have to see if Ryan Madden can maybe beat it. Only driver from Sega Motorsports to move on to this final round of qualifying. He has not yet gone to victory lane yet this season, though. His only win came Season 1 Talladega Superspeedway, the track that we were just at last week. So he is now on a 36 race winless streak. It's been a full year since his only trip to victory lane in the Hersheys Cup Series event. 38.753. That's a great first lap for the U.S. Army Chevrolet. Dillon Young able to use a little bit of draft, I think, off the 8 down the back straightaway, laid down a 38.674, and Joshua Ciculli top of the leaderboard with a 38.577. There he is. Pichu London, Chris Dodd coming off pit road. Cole Baker across the line with a 38.823. And Monobe top of the leaderboard, and now Tim Walsh top of the leaderboard. That 5 car is fast. He had a 37.710, I believe it was. in the second round of qualifying. And I'm telling you what, that could be the guy to look at to maybe start on the pole. That Kellogg Chevrolet is wound up here tonight. Almost a 38 flat. Let's see what he runs this time. Is it going to be any better? And it's a 37.672. Man, that car is fast tonight. And boy, I'm going to actually really be surprised if anybody's able to get the pole position away from him. That is no doubt the fastest car in the last 2 sessions right now. Monobe right now second and now drops to third as Pichu London jumps up to second. 37.865. So could that be the main competitor for the pole position? You've got a good position right now just behind Joshua Ciculli and Chris Dodd, able to get some nice draft, and now Jonny Gardner enters the fray. 37.717 for the 27 car. Tim Walch just ran a 37.5 though, so he opens up his distance again. London got the wall off the corner. I think he might have had a shot at it if he hadn't scraped the wall. 38.08. There is Walsh. Here's Monobe. About a 10th off her fastest lap of 38.291. Walsh just crossed the line. He just beat his own lap again, 37.568. Jonny Gardner was 1/1000th slower than his fastest lap. He had a 7.17 for his fastest lap. He just ran a 7.18. Daniel Olson right now in the 4th position. 37.9 has been what he's able to muster. I'm surprised right here, running in the draft, Grayson Acevedo hasn't been able to get any higher than 11th. He's right now in the slipstream of the 8 car of Ryan Madden. Pichu London. Nope, about a 10th slower than his fastest lap that time by. And Tim Walsh now is starting to taper off on his lap times. Just ran a 37.580. That's about 2/100th slower than his fastest lap. But I'm going to be making a wager here that he's going to be starting on the pole position. I don't think anybody's going to be able to get him. Jonny Gardner just ran a 37.716. So he just beat his lap by 1,000. So his 2 laps ago was a 7.17. Then he ran a 7.18, and he just ran a 7.16. If it's a 7.15 this time, I'm going to absolutely lose it. And we're not going to get to find out. Thanks, game. We don't get to find out. But Tim Walsh will officially be the pole sitter for this week's season finale at Auto Club. Jonny Gardner will start in 2nd. Pichu London and Daniel Olson will make it an all-rookie row 2. And then it'll be Brandon Gonzales. Chris Dodd will roll off from the 6th position. He'll be starting on the outside, so that'll be interesting. Joshua Ciculli and Monobe will line up in row 4. Row 5, Ryan Madden, Dillon Young, and Grayson Acevedo, Cole Baker will be starting in 11th and 12th place in the starting grid. Nobody will be going to backup cars for this race because nobody wrecked in round 2 or in round 3 of qualifying. So that's at least good. Nobody will have to go to the tail end of the field for a backup machine. Well, we have our starting grid set up now for our season finale here at Auto Club. To find out what the lineup looks like, look down in the description below. Tim Walsh will be starting on the pole. Chris Dodd will be starting the highest of the chase drivers, the final 4 in the hunt still for the championship. He'll start off inside the top 10 in 6th. Check the description to see where McCrury, Charles Sanford, and Benjamin Miles will all be starting this race. Whoever finishes the highest of the 4 will end up being the champion, although Charles Sanford does have that 3-point bonus because of his win at Talladega in the last round of the chase, so that could play a big factor into this. Don't go anywhere. The season finale here at Auto Club is going to be the next race you will see come out here on this channel, and we will be crowning ourselves either a 2-time Hersheys Cup Series champion in Anthony McCrury or a first-time Hersheys Cup Series champion in Charles Sanford, Benjamin Miles, or Chris Dodd. Who will it be? Are you in McCrury Nation, Sanford Nation, Miles Nation, or Dodd Nation? We'll find out who the champ will be, as we will be back here from Auto Club for that race very soon. You've been watching a production of the SRA Offline Race as Best. We'll see you guys next time for the season finale.